I'm making a remake of this video about the Russian invasion of Ukraine because the audio problems were too bad in the first video. So let's begin with why the Russian invasion of Ukraine failed. So first, I would like to give you the basic information about the levels of operation. So to sum up it in a very basic level, as the time spent on preparation and planning of the operation and the amount of forces involved and the equipment involved increases, the operational level increases from tactical, operational to strategic. So tactical operations are mostly done by really small groups of personnel with short times of planning, with more like fast response times, and it increases the operational, which can be understood as the large-scale maneuvers that can be seen on the map, and strategic level can be considered the efforts that affect the entire outcome of the war. And first, we need to understand the Soviet way of waging war to understand why the invasion of Ukraine failed. So in World War II, due to German superiority in leadership, communication equipment, and doctrinal choices, as Germany was more reliant on Auftragstaktik, which gave autonomy of action to the lesser commanders to take their own initiative. Soviet Union was outcompeted at the tactical level throughout the whole of the Second World War, and due to Soviet superiority in manpower, equipment and logistics, Soviet Union was superior at operational and strategic levels. And as the level increases from operational to strategic, from the tactical, it becomes more and more about a battle of attrition, where the resources and manpower you have comes into effect, which Soviet Union had in superior amounts. So these two facts made the Soviets realize that they could not match Germans at tactical flexibility, and it wasn't necessary either. The German tactical flexibility must have been countered by higher operational flexibility. And for this reason, huge operational reserves behind the lines that are not the front line troops that were holding the line were to be created. First, enemy defensive line would be attacked by from multiple points with the first echelon troops consisting of mass infantry with heavy artillery support, which is basically where the meme of mass Soviet artillery came from. After breaches occurred in enemy defensive lines, second and third echelon troops consisting of tanks and motorized and sometimes even cavalry would start pouring into these gaps and drive into the operational depth of the enemy to engage with the enemy reserves while getting fire support from air force, and this would in effect make the resistance of enemy impossible or irrelevant. After the Soviet failures of 41 and 42, they recovered in around a year or two, and when they started to effectively use this doctrine, it brought devastating strategic defeats on Germans. And then came the Cold War. In a potential war against NATO throughout Cold War, the same balance of power continued with Western militaries being stronger at tactical level, and the Soviets trying to counteract it with higher operational flexibility. So basically, Western militaries took the German approach to war and improved upon it with more modern approach and technologies. This caused a divergence in approach to command structures and approaches to war between East and West. Western militaries shrank the minimum size of formation that is completely autonomous in waging operations from the division level, which was basically for everyone throughout World War II, to brigade or regiment levels, and emphasized Auftragstaktik, which is, as I said, autonomous action at lower organizational levels, and combined arms operations and created a huge and high-quality NCO corps as the backbone of their army. Soviets, on the other hand, kept the minimum autonomous organizational level at division and embraced a much stricter chain of command with less emphasis on combined arms operations and instead relied on extensive planning to make up for the shortfall. So it can be understood as a similar approach to the French methodological battle of the First World War. Like there is some similarities between the two in this at this level. And one major difference between a potential East versus West war and World War II was that it was inevitable for Soviets to lose air superiority against NATO, as the American Air Force was way too powerful, which made air support from mobile troops impossible, and it was to be mitigated by self-propelled artillery, which is the reason why there's a lot of artillery and huge reliance on it on the Russian army. To sum up, to deconstruct the concept, Soviet deep battle compared to the belief or the German approach, which I can sum up as an operational gambling, was a safe doctrine which tried to make sure that manpower and firepower superiority resulted in victory. And this part is extremely important to understand the failures of the Russia. It is crucial to recognize that the use of deep battle required manpower and firepower superiority. So then came the collapse of the Soviet Union, and we have some data. As you can see, Soviet Russian population basically halved, which meant that they lost the demographic edge, and the military budget basically declined 20-fold, which made them lose the equipment and firepower edge against the rivals. And on top of that, its tactical inferiority, which was intentional throughout Cold War, not only persisted but also increased. These facts made the Russian leadership realize that it was impossible for Russia to defeat US in a conventional war because it was basically worse in all the ways, and that only way for Russia to protect itself was to have a big nuclear deterrence, and it focused on modernizing and expanding its strategic missile forces. As a result, as of today, Russia has the world's biggest and strongest nuclear force. Then a dilemma occurred about the use of conventional army for Russia. One side argued that the geopolitical reality of the 21st century meant that the conventional Russian army was to be a highly professional Western-like army that would be used to fight low-intensity fights against asymmetric opponents, or for force projection overseas, and also being an R&D fund for arms industry. The other side argued that this transition would be hard to impossible, and there are still smaller scale adversaries like Ukraine, where an army focused on large-scale symmetric war would be more suitable. The budget constraints, the geopolitical considerations, and the goals and aims of Kremlin and Putin meant that the first side won, and military reforms were started after the lessons of the Georgian War under the supervision of then Defense Minister Serdyukov. Serdyukov was changed with Shoigu in 2012, as he basically the reforms were very unpopular in the military circles of Russia, and this made him enemies with a lot of high military officials, and therefore he was replaced with Shoigu, and he stopped the reform process. As a result of these two facts, Russian army was cut down to a much smaller size, while it still lacked the professional NCO corps, combined arms training, and overall professionalism in the military. But this means that Russian army essentially became the military equivalent of Hyperloop, a combination of the bad sides of two different systems. Battalion tactical groups, as a result of these reforms, were formed, which are to sum what they are, giving the entire brigades or even divisions worth of equipment that were present in Soviet divisions and giving it to a single battalion-sized army. The lack of NCO corps and tactical flexibility didn't hurt the Russian army in Syria and Donbass much when it was first used, because in these wars these BTGs were essentially just attached to the already fighting lightly armed militia to increase their punching power by giving them more firepower, more armor. And of course, this didn't turn out to be the case in 2022 because there were no militia to be attached to, and it was impossible to defeat the enemy with this little amount of infantry. These BTGs and their equipment became vulnerable to Ukrainian attacks as Ukraine's manpower dense light infantry forces infiltrated and isolated the BTGs and their equipment became sitting ducks. So we will continue this series with more videos and more in-depth analysis of other problems the Russia faced, what Ukraine did, what Russia did, the change in tactics and strategies for both sides, and the theories of victory. So if you liked my video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment below about your ideas for how to improve my videos. And thanks for watching.